Hello, BookTube. Welcome back for yet another library tour. Today we have the rest of Tolkien, we have all of C.S. Lewis, we have some ancient history and ancient literature, and we'll dive a little bit into medieval. So we've got a lot on the shelf because none of them have an overabundance of volumes on the shelf. And these are somewhat larger shelves than normal. So let's just dive right in. So first we have this delightful illustrated edition of the Silmarillion, which just has wonderful illustrations throughout, which are also on that lovely calendar back there. Some of which. Next we have The Children of Hurin by Tolkien. So this is a volume. I got it on Thrift Books, which is why it doesn't have the dust jacket. And that's okay. Got a copy of Unfinished Tales of Numenor and Middle-earth. So this is edited by Christopher Tolkien. So this includes some stuff from the First Age, Second Age, and the Third Age, all in here, along with stuff about the Druidain, Istarian, Palantiri at the end. So it's got some interesting stuff. We have the Lay of Etru and Itrun. Yeah, this is an enjoyable one. It not very long at all. I read it a couple years ago. We have the Tolkien Reader. So this includes some really, really good ones. This has got Tolkien's Magic Ring by Peter Beagle. Then we have, that's kind of the introduction there. Homecoming of Bjorhelm's Son, Tree and Leaf, Farmer Giles of Ham, and then The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. So Tree and Leaf will include On Fairy Stories. Adventures of Tom Bombadil are poems. So there's some really good stuff in this one. One of my favorite volumes, we have Tolkien's translation of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Pearl, and Sir Orfeo. I read the Marie Boroff translation of both of those last year. It's been a while since I've been back in Sir Orfeo. I'm definitely due to reread his translation sometime soon. C.S. Lewis, The Grief Observed, which he wrote upon the death of his wife, Joy. We have Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. We have The Chronicles of Narnia in this full edition. A pretty standard all-in-one edition. We have The Pilgrim's Regress, which I read last year and enjoyed quite a bit. Definitely one that is worth rereading in the future. Out of the Silent Planet, so the first of the Space Trilogy. I read all three of those last year. Enjoyed Paralandra, the second one, the most, but this one's really good as well. And that's the only one of that Space Trilogy I actually own. And the Screwtape Letters brings us to an end of Lewis and Tolkien. I had Until They Have Faces, but I sent that off to the wonderful Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot, which I hope she will enjoy at some point in time. So now we are going into ancient literature first. So we have the Epic of Gilgamesh. I read this last year. It's fine. It's enjoyable. Didn't blow me away, but was certainly an enjoyable read. Lives of the Later Caesars. First part of the Augustan history with newly compiled Lives of Nerva and Trajan. I need to read this one at some point in time. We have the Oresteia by, I don't even know how to pronounce it, but it includes Agamemnon, the Libation Bearers, and the Eumenides, translated by Robert Fagles. We have The Voyage of Argo by Apollonius of Rhodes. We have Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Of all of those, I think Gilgamesh is the only one that I've read. Another book that I read all of last year, well, all of the main text, Landmark Julius Caesar. which is a fantastic edition. I highly, highly recommend the Landmark editions. They're, in the paperback at least, they are very affordable. We have the Landmark Herodotus, which I made a start on last year, but ended up having to set it aside because too many things were going on to be able to really focus in on it. And I wasn't doing Herodotus the service he deserves on being able to just really immerse myself in the text and really take in what he's saying. And then we have the Landmark Thucydides. So this is the comprehensive guide to the Peloponnesian War. And I'm excited to get into this. I tried reading the start of last year, the Norton Critical for the Peloponnesian War, and had a really tough time with it. So I don't know, between the translation here and then just all of the additions that the Landmark edition adds, I'm hoping to get along better with it when I get to it in that. We have some Plato here, The Last Days of Socrates, which I also need to read. The Republic by Plato, which I also need to read. The Oedipus Cycle by Sophocles, which I have read these, it's been a long time, high school. You know, this might be a good way of getting 3 off of my 100 book challenge, to revisit that soon. Another one I need to revisit sometime soon, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And we have the Penguin Atlas of Ancient History. So there's actually a fair amount of writing in there to go with each of these, which surprised me. I was hoping it was mostly pictures, the Atlas piece, which, I mean, it's pretty much a page of text and then the page of images next to it. I was hoping that would be a nice, easy one to cheat through for this 100 book challenge. The Aeneid by Robert Fagles, translated by Robert Fagles, written by Virgil. Right? Yeah, Virgil. It was blending in it from what I was looking at. It's been a while since I've read the Aeneid. I'd like to reread it. I reread Odyssey and the Iliad in the Fagles translation. Ended up parting with both of those volumes after I finished. Put them in a little free library to pass them along because they weren't my favorite translation and not my favorite edition. So I'll be picking up a better edition of the Iliad and the Odyssey at some point in time that fits more of what I want out of them in terms of having endnotes or not endnotes, but footnotes and other commentary and textual information. I am sure I'll have the same desire with the Aeneid, but you know, it would be worth diving back into. We have a Wordsworth Military Library Edition, Julius Caesar, Man, Soldier, and Tyrant. I read one of these. I have 4 different Wordsworth Military Library volumes. I read one last year, and it was not very enjoyable. It wasn't poorly written. It was just very dry in the writing beyond the first couple paragraphs. Michael K. Vaughan says The Peloponnesian War by Donald Kagan is really, really good and enjoyable. I need to get around to reading it. I've had it for a while. Volume I started a little bit last year in Nonfiction November and haven't circled back around to yet. The Greeks by H.D.F. Kiddo. You can see there. I'm just a little ways in there. Ready to read Chapter 4 on Homer. So that's one I'll be circling back around to sometime soon. History of Roman Britain by Peter Salway. So as you can see, we are into the nonfiction now. Firmly into the nonfiction. And that ends the ancients. So now we are going into medieval literature. And this volume here, I don't think you can see it. It is Beowulf. It's very faintly imprinted on there. You can see it a little bit better there on the spine. So this is Kleber, 3rd edition. They have a 4th edition out now, which I would love to have. But this is the... Kleber is like the definitive volume of Beowulf to get. And he's got a lot of information in there ahead of the poem itself, because the poem starts at this point in time. So there's a lot of stuff before it. But what I like is that it's got it in Old English there. And I am slowly, very, very slowly, attempting to learn to read and speak Old English. So that's a very beloved volume for me. But when I don't feel like reading in Old English, I've got the Norton Critical Beowulf First Translation by Seamus Heaney. And I have a translation I haven't read yet by Burton Raffel that I would like to pick up and read at some point in time to see how I get along with it. I was underwhelmed by the Burton Raffel translation of drawing a blank on it right now. My buddy read it last year with Stephanie Cohen. It's a French poem classic, and it's going to come to me way later. If I remember it, I'll mention it. You probably are already screaming it at the screen. Death of King Arthur by translated by Simon Armitage. This is really, really enjoyable. I read it a couple years ago. I believe the year before I started BookTube, so in 2020. The Mabinogion, translated by Jeffrey Gantz. I still haven't read this, to my Arthurian shame. The Nibelungenlied, translated by A.T. Hetto, who did, I think, that Greek volume. So this is supposed to be a really, really good one. It says that it is the principal literary expression of those heroic legends of which Richard Wagner made such free use of in The Ring. It's a great German epic poem of murder and revenge, recounting peculiar strength and directness, the progress of Siegfried's love for the peerless Kriemhild, the wedding of Gunther and Brunhild, the quarrel between the two queens, Hagen's treacherous murder of Siegfried, and Kriemhild's eventual revenge. This is an old text into a story as readable and exciting as Homer's Iliad. So I'm genuinely excited to get to that at some point in time. Geoffrey of Monmouth, The History of the Kings of Britain. Excellent volume to have. Not highly readable, but highly enjoyable. The Vinland Saga, Norse Discoveries of America. Nice thin Penguin Classic volume, which tells me that what should be here next would be my copy of the Penguin Classics of Njal Saga, which I have upstairs because I'm currently chipping away at it. We have The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius. This is translated by Richard Green. This is from the Library of Liberal Arts. Haven't ever heard of that. But this was at a library on their quarter sale. So I had to pick it up because I didn't have a volume of Boethius anymore. Song of Roland. That's the one I was thinking of. So I've got a translation by Dorothy Sayers. I read the Burton Raffel translation last year and then passed it along because I didn't enjoy the translation. I didn't really enjoy the Song of Roland as much as I expected to, but maybe the Dorothy Sayers translation will help that a little bit. And then we end today with B, the Ecclesiastical History of the English People. Excellent, 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 excellent. There are so many good books in medieval history and literature. I wish they would do landmark editions of medieval texts, and that would just be so delightful. I need landmark editions of things like History of the Kings of Britain and the Ecclesiastical History of the English People. Give me a landmark Chaucer. Sign me up, right? So there you have it. There's the shelf tour. Next week we have, it is all medieval. All medieval. Combination of literature and nonfiction. So we will be going into medieval because there's going to be a couple that will bleed over into the week after that before we get into things like Shakespeare and up into the Victorian era of writing. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this library tour. And if you haven't started your own library tours, please do so. I would love to watch them. This is so much fun to just watch and enjoy what people have on their shelves and hear them talk about ones that they know enough about. And if you don't feel like you have enough, uh, do them a couple books at a time and just talk at length at the books, and you can stretch it out for a while. Nobody says this has to be a long running series. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.